Welcome to the Keys to Oracle Certification, everyone. My name is Dave Anderson from SkillBuilders. I'll be fielding your questions and moderating today. Please use the chat window to ask your questions today. We'll field a few of the questions during the session, but we will have time for more question and answer after Jeff's presentation. Our instructor today is Jeff Weiland. For more information about Jeff and I, you can visit skillbuilders.com/oracle, and you'll see everything we do and all of our bios. There's a couple of phone numbers there in case you want to contact us. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Jeff today. Jeff Weiland is SkillBuilders Senior Oracle Instructor and Developer. Jeff has 25 years of overall IT experience and more than 10 years of experience with the Oracle database. Jeff spends about 50% of his time consulting and 50% of his time teaching. He's got lots of degrees, bachelor's and master's, including a master's from Princeton University. And you can reach Jeff at jeff.weiland@skillbuilders.com. And I'm going to turn it right over to Jeff and get started with today's presentation. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Dave. Today's presentation, welcome everybody, by the way. Today's presentation is going to be talking about the Oracle OCA OCP certification path. And we have 5 topics that we plan to cover in this hour. The first one is going to be understanding the certification path. So we'll just do a little review for those of you who are not familiar with what the paths are and how you get there and so on. The second one will be to describe the certification exams themselves, so you know what you're up against when you go into those exams. And then a third will be, once you know what the exam is, how do you prepare and how do you pass the certification exams? That's the key. And that's what this is all about. How do you pass the certification exams so you can get your certification? And then at the tail end of the presentation, we will actually review a sample certification lesson. So you'll get or at least a piece of a lesson. So you'll get a feel for where we're going to go when we teach a certification course, what you can expect to see in the course, and so on. And at the very end, number 5, we're going to take and review a sample certification mini exam. This is all anonymous, of course, but we're going to put up a little mini exam with just 3 or 4 questions, and that would be typical questions that you would get on a certification exam. We'll take a poll, and we'll get general numbers and see what % of the people get it right and what % of it get it wrong. So that's where we're going. And let's start in right away with number 1, understanding the certification path. Oracle, first of all, has dozens of certifications. We are focusing on the OCA OCP path, which is the main certification path. There are plenty of other certifications for specialties in PL SQL and data warehousing and other things, but the main entry into certification is the OCA OCP path. That stands for Oracle Certified Associate and Oracle Certified Professional. In order to get these, you're going to have to pass 2 exams for the OCA and a 3rd exam for the OCP. The exams are administered for Oracle by Pearson Vue. Here's their website, www.pearsonvue.com/oracle, and I'll just click on that for a minute to show you what that's going to look like. And when you get to that website, you will see you can locate test centers, schedule tests, reschedule a test if you have to, and so on. Look at your account, see what tests you've taken, what you've passed, and so on. So there's a lot of information there. That's when you're ready to schedule an actual test and pay your money for it, and you're all prepared and go and take it. That's the goal. Okay, well, first is the OCA, Oracle Certified Associate. It requires you to pass 2 exams. You need 2 exams here. The first one is the Oracle Database 11G SQL Fundamentals 1, and the number for that is 1Z0051. You really don't have to take this particular exam. There are various older exams that you might have already taken, and I will review that in a couple of minutes. And if you've already taken and passed one of those prior exams, which in essence tests your SQL capability, then you don't have to take the 1Z0051. What you do need to take is the Oracle Database 11G Administration one, which is 1Z0052. That one you must take. There are no other alternate exams you can take for that. Once you take and pass both of these exams, then you will get your Database 11G Administrator Certified Associate, otherwise known as Oracle Certified Associate. That's OCA. Now let's take the next step. After you get your OCA, which you must do first, then you go for your OCP if that's where you want to go. The first thing you need for your OCP is your OCA. You can't get it without an OCA. So you have to pass those other first two exams and get your OCA. Then you have one more exam to take, which is the Administration 2 1Z0053 exam, which is basically more complex concepts and so on are tested there on basically database administration. So we now have 3 tests that we had to take. We can help you get ready and prepare for and all of those 3 tests. And in this hour, I'm going to tell you not just how we can help you, but how you can help yourself, what books you should go after, what things you need to do to get fully prepared for that. But we can help you with those too, and we'll show you a little bit of what we have for that. There is one additional capability, one additional thing, and that is for the OCP only, not the OCA. But for the OCP only, unfortunately, you must take one official Oracle University course. They're quite expensive. The typical 5-day course is $3,000. Now, you only need one Oracle University course, and there are a lot of choices here. So if you've already taken one, you're okay. You've paid for that. You don't have to take one of their courses again. You can either study on your own, self-study. You can do web-based training. You can take a course with us SkillBuilders. Whatever you decide to do, you don't have to take that if you've already taken and paid for one of their courses. But if you haven't taken any of their courses, then there would be no point in taking ours or anybody else's. You need to take one of the Oracle University certified courses because you've got to spend that money anyway. Okay? And once you've done that, you now have your OCP. So for OCA, no problem. You don't need to spend any money with Oracle other than the fee for the actual exam, which we'll get to in a short while. But for the OCP, you need to take that one course. Okay. Here is a website that has all of the Oracle certification details. So let me just click on that and go there briefly to show you what's here. And this is a summary of what we've just talked about. For your OCA, the typical test is this 1Z0051. However, there are 3 other exams, and if you've taken any of those, notice the first one is a retired exam, but the other 2 are still active exams, and they're older ones that you may have taken when you were studying Oracle 9i, or a relatively new one when you were studying Oracle 10. If you've taken any of those, you do not have to take the 051. If you haven't, then you need the 051. You must have the 052. That's a requirement. And after you pass both of those, you're an OCA. You've got the certification. Now let's take a step down and look at the OCP. Prior OCA certification is required. You must take that one expensive Oracle course that is either instructor-led or in-class course. So you need to take one of those courses, and then you have to take and pass the 1Z0053, which is the Admin 2 course. Fill out a form, and you've got your OCP. And there are plenty of other certifications. You can go beyond that to an Oracle Certified Master and so on. The Oracle Certified Master is a much more intensive training, much more intensive exams. Those are in-person exams. You actually have to solve problems. And it's a whole different world for OCM. And there are some OCMs out there, and maybe you want to consider doing that, but you certainly need a lot of experience in the field before you're going to take that. Okay, and there are plenty of other exams as well, but that's basically what I wanted to show you here. So that's your OCP, Oracle Certified Program, to get you through those exams. Okay, let's describe the certification exams themselves. Step 2. We just understood the certification path. Now step 2 is let's look at the actual certification exams. SQL Fundamentals, 051, 70 multiple choice questions. Fortunately, all 3 of these exams are multiple choice questions. All right, so it's not writing code or anything. You get into that when you're in the Oracle Certified Master, but not in the OCA OCP. 120 minutes to answer 70 multiple choice questions. The passing grade is only 60%. It is a non-proctored exam, so you could take it at an exam site, or you could take it from your home computer anywhere you want to do. It's a non-proctored exam. The fee is the lowest fee they have for any of these 3 exams. It's $125 for the fee. And Oracle, you'll see this on a couple of slides, Oracle tells you these are all subject to change at any time. However, it's been the same for a few years, so it hasn't changed recently. Well, 70, a lot of you may be developers. You know a lot of SQL, right? You may be DBAs. You know a reasonable amount of SQL. You say 70 multiple choice SQL questions in 120 minutes, only 60%. Sounds easy, right? What could go wrong? Well, a lot of things can go wrong. A lot of things can go wrong. Let's look at some of them. What are the challenges that we have in the SQL Fundamentals class? Well, first of all, if you're a DBA, I hate to say this to those of you that are DBAs, but your SQL skills are not likely to be enough to pass this exam. You may know a lot of SQL. You may have done a lot of work where you did DBA type work and maybe even some developer type work to help your developers out. But this requires that kind of knowledge that senior developers, significant developers with a lot of SQL experience have in order to pass the test. So that's one issue. Second issue is that's if you're a DBA. If you're a developer and you think it's a no-brainer because you've got a lot of SQL skills, well, you may be wrong there too. And the reason is a couple. One is they test a lot of commands that you're probably not using on a daily basis. We all have commands that we're used to on a daily basis, and those commands are the ones that we solve our problems with. But we all know that there's other ways to get the same thing done. So you might know NVL, but not NVL2, okay? Not is null. You can use these things interchangeably to solve the same problems. And so you may not be using the things they're going to test on. That's one reason that it may not be easy. And another reason that it may not be easy, even if you're a developer with significant SQL experience, is that you think you have plenty of time for this, but you may be wrong on that too. Because when you look at some of the questions, and we'll see this when we do a practice mini exam at the end of this hour, there are many questions that require analyzing a whole bunch of SQL code. So now, here you've got a question, you've got a piece of SQL code. You can't type it in and run it. All you get is a pencil and paper in the exam, and you've got to look at it and try to figure out what that code is going to do and whether it's going to do it properly and so on. And in the amount of time you have, it's easy to run low on time. And many people with significant SQL experience that I've had in my classes have reported back to me when they took the test that they were hard-pressed to finish the course in time. Some people are fine, but many other people have difficulty with that. And we'll chat more about the timing of the test and what you do to resolve that in the coming slides. That's 1Z0051. Those are the challenges. Now we have 1Z0052 and 3, Admin 1 and Admin 2. Admin 1, 70 multiple choice questions, same amount, less minutes, 90 minutes, passing score a little higher. It is a proctored exam. You must take it at the exam site, and the fee is a little higher, $195 US dollars. 1Z0053, that's Admin 2, 78, a bit more questions, some more time, 120 minutes, passing score 66, the same 195 US fee. Now, what about Admin 1 and Admin 2? How does that compare as an exam and passing the exam to our SQL exam? Well, here's the challenges you're going to face in the Admin 1 and Admin 2. First of all, if you are a developer and not a DBA, your Oracle admin skills are very likely not enough to pass these exams. It tests a lot of different administration, DBA type concepts. If you're a DBA and you think it's going to be a no-brainer, you may be wrong there too, because again, the concepts and features that it tests is a wide variety, some of which you may use in your environment, others you may not. If you've got years of experience in multiple environments, you're probably okay. But if you've been working in one environment, you may not be using various concepts that are still tested here. So you've got to watch out whether you're a DBA or, and especially if you're a developer, on these two. Exam timing will generally not be a problem in these two. Admin 1 and Admin 2 are testing concepts. They're not showing you a lot of code and saying how will that work. Generally, they're concepts. You generally will not be pressed for time, fortunately, on these two tests. Okay, we've discussed the certification path and described the exams. Now let's talk about how do you prepare for and how do you pass these exams. And this is a key topic that we cover in our course and that you're going to need to cover in whatever way you do prepare for these exams. How do you pass it? The first key thing is you've got to know what to expect. You must know what's going to be on the exam, and we'll talk about how to know that and the places to go to find that out. Once you know what to expect, now things become a lot easier. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know, and therefore you're going to review and learn the areas you're weak in. So those are two key things. And you can't just, if you just say, gee, I'll learn everything about SQL, forget it. You'll never learn everything about SQL. None of us will. There's just too much in there. There are too many commands. So you need to know what areas are going to be tested, and there are resources to find that out. And we'll see that also in the next few slides. The third bullet here is take lots of practice exams. That is very important. That's key. You want to take practice exams over and over and over again. Any practice exam you take where you were weak and didn't do well, you're going to go back, relearn those areas, take it again until you get the questions right. There are sources for different practice exams. I want you to take, and you need to take as many different practice exams as you can to feel comfortable for when you go into the test. And the last thing you need to do is learn how to be an Oracle test taker. And there are various tricks of the trade and things you need to know up front about Oracle testing that you may not, unless you know it beforehand, you're not going to be prepared for that, and we're going to discuss what those things are right here. Okay. The first and one of the most important things to do is study the 3 key Oracle Press books, or the Oracle Press books that are appropriate for the test you're going to take. There are 3 tests. We have 3 books. The Oracle Database 11G SQL Fundamentals 1 exam guide, Administration 1 exam guide, Administration 2 exam guide. You're going to, and the reason you're going to focus on those is those books were put together knowing the exams, highlighting the things you really need to know. They highlight the tricky areas, the same thing that I'm going to do here and to a smaller degree, and that I would do it to a much greater degree in a full course, preparatory course for the certification exams. But they're very good. These Oracle books are really excellent, and we use them, as a matter of fact, as the basis for all of our certification courses. So they are that good. Be careful. For the 1Z0051, for the SQL Fundamentals, focus on the concepts and the code. You need to know the code. You need to know the SQL syntax. You need to know when there's one character wrong because a comma is forgotten or an extra comma is put in. You need to know the commands. You need to know the code. There's no way around that. For the 1Z0052 and 053, you're going to focus on the concepts. They're not going to ask you a lot of detailed steps. They're not going to give you a lab on how do you do this. They're going to ask you multiple choice questions on the concepts. Okay. The Oracle Press books, fortunately, also include a self-test and a lab at the end of each chapter. So what you can do is the self-tests and the labs are all the same multiple choice format as the real tests. So you want to take every one of those self-tests at the end of chapter, and the labs are different. The labs actually do hands-on, and the labs, while they're important, I would recommend that you focus on the self-test, focus on the questions at the end, the multiple choice questions. If you have time, do the self-test and the labs, because the labs will reinforce, and most of us learn better from labs. If time is limited, unfortunately, you're going to have to focus on the self-tests because that'll give you what you want. The lab always reinforces. I encourage people to do it, but there's a lot of labs there. It's going to take you time. I encourage you to do them if you can and have time. But we know that the self-test is the primary thing because our goal is to get you to pass the test. So you've got to take a lot of self-tests and a lot of practice. Take practice tests. They simulate actual tests. They give you questions, the same number of questions, the same amount of time. They have the clock that ticks down. Those simulated tests are great to show you what you're up against. And in addition, every one of those 3 Oracle Pressbooks comes with a master exam on the CD, which will simulate the exam, and a second free master exam that you can take online. And there are many other online exams, some of which you pay for, some of which you don't pay for, that simulate the real tests, and you want to take as many of those as you can. The goal is, if you need to get a 60, do not aim for a 60. If you need to get a 66, do not aim for a 66. You will flunk the test. Your score on the practice exams need to be significantly higher than what is needed on the real exams, for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're taking a lot of practice tests, and a lot of these that you find on the web use the same questions over and over. So you're seeing more questions, but as you take a lot, you're going to see a lot of the same kind of thing. On the real test, they will have new questions that have not been on there. So you're going to see new stuff, and therefore just because you're passing, barely passing or passing by 5 points or whatever, on a practice test where you've seen a lot of them before, doesn't mean you will pass the real test. So that's a critical thing. And number two, second reason is you're under pressure in the real test. You're under more pressure. So there's the the nervous kind of thing that can come in, the panic kind of thing that of course you always want to avoid. But that can hold you down a little bit. How much higher? I would shoot for an 80 on any of those tests. If you can consistently get an 80 where you're seeing a bunch of new questions, then you should be okay. Okay, so that's your goal.
Hey, Jeff, we've got a couple of questions in the queue.
Sure, Dave.
One I'd like for you to take, and the other I can take. I'll take mine first. Will the video be archived to view this later? And it sure will. We'll send you all an email so that you can review Jeff's presentation at a later time, anytime you want. Jeff, question for you. Can an exam be retaken?
Good question. Thank you, Dave. Yes, it can. The non-proctored exam, which is the SQL exam, the 051 exam, can be retaken at any time. Of course, you need to pay your fee again. They're going to collect their fee, but you can retake it at any time. The proctored exams, which is the 052 and 053, you need to wait 2 weeks, 14 days. And then you can retake the exam. And again, there is no discount, unfortunately, for the second or third time you take the exam. You have to pay over again. Okay. Thanks,
Great.
Dave.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. The next point about how you pass these exams is you have to be a good Oracle test taker. So like any test, and in particular on these Oracle tests, please read all the questions very carefully. And you'll see why as we go through this. Beware, number one, of the number of correct answers. Sometimes they will say, provide the correct answer. Sometimes they will say, provide all correct answers. And you may have 5 choices, A, B, C, D, and E, and you know the combinations there. There's a lot of combinations. You've got to find all the correct answers. Sometimes they'll say, find the best answer. Those are the ones I hate the most because you're reading them and 2 or 3 of them can be right and they're really right, but they want to know the best answer. So you got to be really careful with these. Read the question very carefully so you know what they're looking for. Beware of what they're asking. In addition, are they asking for what's correct? And usually they do, but sometimes they say which is the wrong answer. If you read quickly because you're rushing, you may see which is the wrong answer, and you may not realize they want the wrong answer. You think they want the correct, and you're set. Are they asking for the correct, the best, or all correct answers? We've mentioned that just before. And beware, they even ask you some nasty questions. They put double negatives in there or other misleading wording on occasion. They are not above doing that. I don't know why they do it. Most of us who are in the business say that's not what this is all about, but that's what they do. So read the questions carefully. That's key. Be a good Oracle test taker. Timing, I mentioned, is critical, especially on the 051. 120 questions, 70 multiple choice, 1.7 minutes per question. On the 052, 90 and 70, you got 1.3 minutes. 053, a little bit more because it's a more complex administration course, 1.5 minutes. As I mentioned, 052 and 053 are concepts. You're more than likely going to have enough time. But on the 051 and on all of the tests, monitor your time as you're taking it. When you're taking the practice, get used to monitoring your time. Know what question number you're up to. Multiply it in your head by, 1.5 minutes or something, so you get a ballpark, and then you know how many minutes you should have. If you're too many minutes into it, you know you got to speed things up. Monitor your time very carefully. Difficult questions. Don't waste your time on it. If you look at a question and say, oh my God, this is going to take me forever, don't waste your time. Take a quick guess, flag the question, which you can do in the actual test, and the sample tests you take will show you that. You can flag it for later review, move on to the next question, and if you have time, you come back to the flag questions. Do not sit there and take 5 minutes on a question or 4 minutes. You don't have 5 or 4 minutes to take on a question. Just to give you an example, people are very different. Here's some quotes from some recent students that I had regarding the 051 exam. First student says, and this was after they took the exam, I keep in touch with my students, I ask them how they did and so on, and I get some feedback. I think the biggest piece of input was making sure you're scoring 80% on a blind practice test. The real test I found harder than the practice test. P.S. The student passed the exam. Second quote, another student. I worked so hard on the first 30 questions that I lost track of time. I mean, I emphasize that over and over, but in the pressure of the exam, this person lost track. There was no way they could even focus on the remaining questions, knowing how little time I had left. The student failed the exam. Okay, so everybody's got different views. I've had other people that told me, oh, the 051 was a breeze, and other people that told me, man, this was like 8 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, and they failed. So you got to know yourself, but everyone has a different approach to this. Other test-taking hints: answer all questions. There's no penalty for wrong answers. So when I said before, if you've got a question you don't know what it's going to take, or it's going to take too long, guess. There's no penalty. And of course, you'll see this: if two answers are exact opposites, I won't say always, but often one of them is the correct answer, and they've asked the other one just to trick you and have you answer the reverse way. And be careful of the question. Does the question say this will work or this will not work? Okay, so what we've done is we have 5 topics to go over. We've reviewed the certification path. We've described the exams. I talked very briefly, we do it a lot more detail in a real class, but I talked very briefly all the key things that you need to pass the certification exams. And we have 2 more to go. We have a sample certification lesson, or at least a mini lesson that we're going to go over so you'll know what gets covered in a real lesson. And then we're going to take all together an anonymous sample certification mini exam. But you're here, so first we're going to give you a message from our sponsor, Dave. And Dave, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. We wanted to let you know that you can take certification classes with SkillBuilders. We have a link there, skillbuilders.com/online classes, and you'll see a list of our current online offerings, including on September 14th, the prep class for the SQL Fundamentals exam 1Z051, and also on September 19th, your preparation for your Oracle Database 11G administration exam. So these are 2 great classes, both going to be taught by Jeff, and he will really help you prepare for these exams. And primary goal, of course, being to help you pass your certification exam. These classes are limited to 6 students, so you're going to have a tremendous amount of attention from your instructor, Jeff, but we do encourage you to register soon so that you don't get locked out of this opportunity this class. The class will include two-way audio, so unlike today where you're just chatting your questions, you'll be able to talk to Jeff not only during the training and the lecture, but during the workshop. So if you have questions while you're trying to do a workshop, Jeff can answer those questions. You can show him your scripts, show him your queries. You can look over your shoulder in a sense, find out what's wrong, and help you along. You can also send Jeff emails if you have questions or chats. Classes include an Oracle Pressbook. There's been many questions about what books do we recommend. Well, we'll give you those books when you take a class with us. Jeff will also list those books later on in this presentation. The books do include sample certification questions and, as Jeff mentioned, 2 free practice certification tests.
Number 4, a review of a sample, a little part of one of our certification lessons. And for this little review, I picked from the SQL Fundamentals topic the chapter called Using Conversion Functions, and just a little piece of that. So let's take a look at that little chapter. So this is a piece of one of the lessons that we would do. There's something like 19 lessons that we go through in this process. And let me see if I can get that up again. Hopefully everyone can see this now. Dave, you pop in if there's any problem with anyone seeing it. In this chapter, I'm just going to cover a couple of concepts. Preliminary concept about conversion. And this is basically what we would normally cover in a course, but little pieces of this chapter. Conversion functions are single row functions, and what is their purpose? To alter a data type. 2 general types of conversions in Oracle: explicit and implicit conversion. Explicit, you're telling Oracle, how do I convert the data? Using your own function, your own stored function, or your own built-in function from Oracle to tell it how to convert the data. It is more reliable to explicitly convert than let Oracle implicitly convert. If you let it implicitly convert, you can run into some issues. And these issues, I promise you, some of these will be tested on the course, in the exam. Let's look at a couple of implications of this implicit conversion. Let's say column C in your table is a character column. If I say a SQL command where C equal quote 100 quote, I'm comparing a character to a character. That will always work. If I say where C equal 100 and I put in a number, column C is going to have character data. When Oracle looks at character equal numeric, Oracle will always try to implicitly convert the character data into numeric. It never converts the numeric to character for this kind of comparison. It always converts the character to numeric. Well, that can lead to a real problem. What's the problem? Let's say there's 1,000,000 rows in my table, and C, which has numbers in it, has 147, 182. It's different department numbers, let's say, and you're comparing it to a 100. Oracle converts the quote 142 quote to 142. It converts the quote 157 quote to 157. But if any one of those 1,000,000 rows has character data that cannot be converted, like quote 142x, Oracle cannot convert that to a number. Any one row, and you will fail, and your select command will fail with an error that it has mismatched data types and it cannot convert it properly. This is the kind of thing that will definitely be tested. You'll get a question somewhere in that 051 exam that forces you to, that says you've got to know this concept, otherwise you'll get that question wrong. So that's one kind of an implicit issue that comes up. There's other implicit issues that come up all the time, and they tend to test this a lot. So these things, if you're familiar with it, great. If you're not familiar with it, bone up on it. You're going to need it for the exam. Here's another one: implicit character to date conversions. I'm converting to dates. Well, the character string must conform to this standard format: 1 or 2-digit day, followed by a separator, followed by a month, either 3-character or fully spelled out, followed by a separator, followed by one of the standard year formats. If you're not familiar with these formats, look up the format strings for the toDate and the toChar functions, and you will see them. Separator 1 and separator 2 can be most punctuation marks, spaces, and tabs. Let's look. I actually have a lab here, implicit character to date conversions, and we do this all the time in the class. So I'm going to take a look at that. Implicit character to date conversions. I'm going to take this data, and I'm going to plug it in right here into SQL Developer. And we'll run this in SQL Developer. And this gives examples of just some of the things we just talked about. Let's look at an example, add months. Most of you are probably familiar with the add months function. You provide a date and you add a number of months to it. So this says add 1 month to January 24th, 2009. And you get February 24th, 2009. Well, notice this first argument should be a date. It is not. It's a character string. What does Oracle do? It does an implicit conversion. It says, I understand that character string format. It converts it to a date, adds 1 month, and then this converts it, of course, back to character to display the result. You may not realize it because this is what we normally see. We normally see dashes in between. That's the standard format. It turns out that your separators can be any of those special characters that we chatted about on the slide. They can be slashes, backslashes, and you don't even need the same special character for the two separators. So here's 1 / January /8. That's still January 1, 2008. Add 1 month to that. It'll work because Oracle can convert this 1 January 8, and it follows its requirement for an implicit conversion because it's in the right format. So they may show you something like this. They may show you with, let's say, 2 equal signs here. That's how they'll fool you. And you think, oh, man, dashes work, but equal signs don't. But they do. All right? So you got to be careful. Here's the next one, months between. A lot of people say, oh, months between January 13th and February 13th is 1 month. Not going to happen. It's minus 1 month. It's always the first minus the second, not the second minus the first. They won't give you a choice of 1 and -1. They'll probably give you a -1 or a 1 or none of the above, and you can easily get that wrong. If you don't know, it's the first minus the second. So be careful with that. Here's another one, add months. I'm just using different symbols, a $ and a slash. That works also. Here's one where I use an exclamation, but I use the letter A as a separator, and it turns out only the special characters are valid separators. The letter A is not. It's going to give you an error, an Oracle, Aura 1841, full year not between, because it's looking at the year and it says the year is invalid there. It's just not understanding it. And here's the one that will throw the most people most of the time. Select add months. I'm taking January 24th, 09 at 6:45 p.m. and adding 1 month. Most people would say that's February 4th, 09 at 6:45 p.m. It actually is not. It'll give you an error. Date format picture ends before converting entire input string. And that's because Oracle tries to do an implicit conversion because you gave it character and not a date. Well, implicit conversion will use the implicit conversion format string, and now we're going to go back here and look at the implicit conversion format string. Notice what it is. Day, separate a month, separate a year. There is no time element. Because they put a time element, it's going to fail. It's not in the default format string for implicit conversions. Okay, so you can see what we're going to focus on is the concepts, but then all of the types of things that are going to be tested on regularly that you may otherwise just never have used before and not be familiar with. Okay, another explicit conversion has to do with toNumber. And one thing I want to point out, I put this in here because in those books and in what we review, they actually have sections on exam watches where they tell you, look out for this. They're going to ask this somewhere in the exam. And it has to do with how the toNumber works. And let's look at another example, which is explicit data type conversions. So I'm going to go in here, get my explicit data type conversions, grab that, go into SQL+, put that in there, and let's run that one and see what we get here. With explicit data type conversion, with implicit data type conversions, we're going to do a to-char, and with implicit, it does it on its own. When we do a to-char or a to-number, that's explicit. We're explicitly providing the conversion versus the other stuff we did before, which was implicit. Well, look at here. To-char, 123.56, converted to a character using this format string. Notice the format string doesn't have enough decimals. When Oracle goes to-char from numeric to character, it will round. Oracle always rounds when going from numeric to character for output, or even when you're doing an insert statement or something. To-number, on the other hand, takes a character string and converts it to a number. Here I have a character string with 2 decimal positions. I'm converting it to a number with 1 decimal position. Oracle is going to say, hey, you really want $123.56. I will not let you, I will not round it, I will not lose the penny, and it will give you an error here, invalid number. So be careful. The to-char works and will round, but the to-number will not if you don't have enough positions in the number, either decimal places or positions before or whatever. So that's, you have to be very careful with that. They will ask something like that somewhere along the line. Look at the next one. To-number expects a character string to convert to a number according to this format. Well, now I'm providing it a number. Well, what Oracle does is it says, okay, I need a character string, so it does an implicit conversion on the number, converts 123.56 to the character string, quote, 1235.56, and it's back to this one. And since it did an implicit conversion here and then an explicit conversion, it's the same result as this. It says, you don't have enough decimal places, I'm going to give you an invalid number. And should you do a to-number and you give it your character string with no format string, Oracle will always handle that properly and give you the right number. So if you give it a wrong format string, you can get an error. If you don't give it any format string, it'll get the right number for you. I guarantee you there will be at least one question that somehow relies on your knowing these concepts. Okay, see where we stand. 145, good. Let me move this right along. Couple of other concepts, nested functions and null functions. Let's look at this. These are nested functions. You will get several questions that have long expressions with nested functions. Here I have a toDate as my inner function. Whoops, let me go back here. I have a toDate as my inner function. You got to evaluate that first. Take the result of that, pass it to the to-char, evaluate that, take the result of that, pass it to length. And you've got to figure it all out and do this all in your 1.7 minute average time. All right? So a toDate on this takes October 28, 2009, according to this format, converts it to a date, but then the to-char formats it with an FM month. Okay, you have to know that FM month pulls out of that October 28th just the month name, October, with a capital O because of the capital M in here. And since it has an FM, you have to know that that means format mask. It means get rid of trailing blanks in the month name. So you wind up with October, OCT, 7 characters. When you ask for length, you get the 7 characters. Without the FM in here, you have to know it'll give you October, but it always pads out the month with enough blanks for the longest month name. The longest month name is September, and you got 9 characters in the longest, so this will actually return to you OCTOBER blank blank, and the length is 9. We're running a little low on time, so I won't show you that function, but it basically does this type of thing. You have to know how all that works. Null functions. If I emphasize one thing more than anything else, one particular thing to learn, you want to learn the 4 basic null functions: NVL, NVL2, null if, and coalesce. You will get probably 2 questions or maybe even 3 questions that use these in some way. And they're confusing because you may be using NVL. NVL is an easy one. Most people use it. NVL of original, and if null, returns the original. If it's not null, and else it returns the second argument. So NVL returns the second argument if the first argument is null. NVL returns the second argument if the first argument is null. No. NVL2 takes 3 arguments. If the original is not null, it returns the second. If the original is null, it returns the third. So NVL returns the second if the original is null, but NVL2 returns the third if the original is null. Trust me, if you don't use NVL2, memorize how it works, memorize the difference. It will be on there. Again, there's an exam watch explaining that and explaining why that's a confusing thing, and it tells you to look out for it. I've seen it, and students have reported back to me that they have this, and thank goodness you went over it, Jeff, because otherwise I could have gotten those 2 questions wrong. Null if is another one you have to learn. The syntax is here, 2 terms. If the 2 terms are equal, it returns a null. If they're not equal, it returns the first term. So you got to know null if as well. And coalesce, you need to know also, it returns the first non-null value in the parameter list. If all of them are null, then it returns a null. The caution is the exam will ask lots of questions based on null functions. Know them if you need to, memorize them. You can't bring anything into the exam. Even an exam that you do non-proctored that you take from home, you're not supposed to be using any reference materials. Okay, so memorize this. You don't even want to use reference materials. You don't want to have to look it up. You want to know it like that. You just want to know it like that. These are important functions. They will be tested on. Okay, let me go back now to, we just reviewed a sample chapter, so you get a feel for what we're going to focus on and what we're going to show you, and we're going to show you the things that, not just the concepts, but the things that they're going to ask you that you're going to likely get wrong if you're not familiar with it. And the last thing is, let's take and review a sample mini-exam. Well, what's that all about? The mini-exam is simplified. Your real exam will be more complex. We're going to take it easy now. We're going to ask, first of all, each one requires only 1 correct answer. No best answer, no all correct answers. There's only 1 correct answer. No trick wording in these questions. I'm going to put up a question, and then you're going to look at it. We'll give you a minute or so to look at it, and you're going to say which answer is it. It's multiple choice, A, B, C, or D, and remember your answer. And if you're not sure, treat this like a regular exam. You pick one that you think is the best and guess on it. We'd like everybody to participate, and we want the guesses so we can see, so we can get a good view for whether you're guessing or whether you're guessing right and so on. After a minute or so, Dave will put up a poll, and you will all be anonymously answering the poll, and we'll see the results of the poll and see how we do. So this is the last piece. Here's some questions from a sample exam that you will very likely kind of get. Here's question number 1. What type of conversion function is performed by the following statement? Here's the statement, and Dave's already started the timer, I'm sure. Look through it and figure out whether the answer is A, B, C, or D, and you'll get a poll in a minute. And the answer is B, implicit conversion. So we had the bulk of the people answering this correctly. Terrific. Beautiful. The point here is that the number, we provide a number to the length function. There's a data mismatch because the length function expects a character string, so it does an implicit conversion to convert it into the character string. So that's very good. Thank you. Okay, next one is, here's question 2. Let's take a minute on that, everybody, and be ready to answer the poll on that one as well. So we did good on question 1. Let's see how we do on question 2. The answer is D, none of the above.
Interesting.
Okay, very interesting. Let's take a look at this. We're going to do a 2 number, and we're taking 123.4.49 and converting it, but it has only 1 decimal point on the end. Now, what Oracle is going to do is it's going to say, remember we said the 2 char will round, the 2 number will not round. If you have 49 cents and you say you convert it to a number, what happens is that Oracle needs a character string for the first argument. 2 number takes a character string, converts it to a number. Well, it doesn't have a character string, it has a number. So Oracle will first do an implicit conversion on 123.4.49 and convert it into the character string, and then it'll try to convert that back into a number using only one decimal place. If it rounded, it would have to round 49 cents to 50 cents, and it will not allow you to do that. If you had a two-number down here where you had 0.99, then it would work just fine. So this is the typical kind of tough question that we chatted about it before, but just chatting about it a little until you actually do it and see that, okay, I had it wrong, let me understand it. Yes, it did an implicit conversion on the 1234.49 into a character, and it's as if you had a character there. It will not convert that to a number if you're going to lose any decimal places. So there's a case where, you know, the bulk of the people got it wrong. What percent, Dave, did you have what percent got D? Is that still there, or we missed that? We lost that?
No, I can give that back to you. That was 37% got it right.
37%. Okay, so we did have a number of people who got it right, but the bulk of people got it wrong. So that's a tough one. Okay, thank you very much all for participating in that. Do we have time for one or two more, or do you want to call it a day, Dave?
I think we're out of time, Jeff.
Okay, we had a couple more questions, and let me just show you what the questions would be, and then we'll end it. We won't go over it. Select tochar of a to-date, of a tochar, of a sysdate, you know. So we're doing sysdate, tochar, and then to-date and tochar again to figure out what the result. That's a very typical question, which can take you a while to figure out what's in there. And the last one is a null if, followed by an NVL2 on the outside. If you don't have that at the tip of your fingers, you're going to spend way too much time on this one to figure it out. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Dave.
Well, thanks again, Jeff. We have just a couple of questions in the queue. And for those who can stay, Jeff's going to answer the questions. Before we do, I'd just like to remind you that we have some certification classes coming up in September that you might be interested in. You will receive a copy of the books that Jeff recommends. These are indeed limited to 6 students per class, so we urge you to register early. And you can do so by visiting skillbuilders.com/online classes, or calling the phone number on your screen, or emailing Gary@skillbuilders.com, our registrar for these classes. So, Jeff, question to you.
Sure.
In what class do you cover group functions, aggregate functions?
Group and aggregate functions are covered in the SQL Fundamentals 1C051.
Okay.
They're covered in detail in that class and in that book.
All right, great. Another question is RMAN covered in any of the classes that we offer?
Yeah, the RMAN is just touched on a couple of concepts in the Admin 1, and it's gone into in more detail in the Admin 2. Both of them will hit concepts for RMAN, but you're not you will not be, and you're not expected to be, an RMAN pro for either of those two. You just have to know the concepts. And, you know, there are a couple of, and by concepts, you know, if you lose a control file, how are you going to recover it? If you're going to lose a data file, what are you going to do? That sort of thing, but not in great detail. Great detail, you know, you need a lot more experience. You need a whole 5-day RMAN class, as you know very well, Dave.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. And we had another question. This was a technical question. With respect to the to-number function, converting a character string 123.23 with a picture string of 59.49. It's a character string. Guess we'd have to test that. I don't have my my SQL Dev up.
That should work fine. If you have more digits in your format string, I assume this is the question you're answering. If you have more digits in the format string than you have in the character string, that'll work fine. You'll just get zeros for the other digits. It won't be a problem. The problem is only if you have less digits in your format string than you actually have in your data character string.
Okay, great. And another question is, can I view this webinar again? Yes, we will send you a link with a direct access to this webinar when it's up on our site, ready to be viewed, so you can review this at any time. As well with the online classes. Those classes are recorded, and you can retake or review the class you take with Jeff at any time. That's just part and parcel of taking an online class with SkillBuilders. So I think that's it, Jeff. Thank you very much for a great presentation. We have a tremendous amount of comments that have come in. Some great presentation, and thank you. So thanks, Jeff. We appreciate it. And,
my pleasure.
And we'll hope to see you all in the next webinar. Have a good day, everyone.
Take care. Good luck in your certification.